1st of February. Roll call, Mr. Miller,
Present.
Mr. Janik,
Here.
Mr. Van Truen,
Here.
Mr. Bukovac,
Here.
Mr. Goodell,
Here.
Mr. Winarski.
Here.
And the chair is present. All members of the administration are present. We have one item on the agenda, that's A1604, the 2016 permanent budget. Mr. Mayor, you presented the budget. Would you care to talk?
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. What I have in front of you is the 2016 final budget. It is a balanced budget for this year. First, as you came into your desk, I had 5 replacement pages that I'd like to just explain a little bit. There was a couple of grants. They're money in and money out, and we had no place to bring those in properly and pay for these grants. So if you would just insert page 10, 15, 16, and 18 into your budget, and then page 26 is the last page, and that is all the totals. So after, it appears that it made the budget go up close to $500,000, but what it is, it's a wash. It's $500,000 in and $500,000 back out. So like I said, it looks like it increased the budget, but those are actually, I'm real proud of these grants that the fire department, the police department, and our Main Street, the CDBG grant. So that's what those are.
Mr. Mayor, we're going to be discussing in the Police and Fire Committee one of those grants, the largest of the grants.
Absolutely,
tonight, right?
$210,000
Okay.
grant. So that's part of that. Like I said, it's a balanced budget. It only uses 85% of our estimated resources, and I'll entertain any questions you might have.
Any
And if
questions?
when you ask a question, it'd be nice. I've got the pages numbered, so if you would, ask about the page and then what item number, it would help.
Mr. Winarski.
Thank you. Question goes out to the administration. It has to do with page 11. Towards the end of last year, we were told that the state was going to start charging us more for the privilege of having Route 2 go through our town. Is that why on page 11 the state highway allocation has gone up so much? And I was hoping for kind of a summary where we're at with that.
State highway is a couple different things. That money comes in from some of the taxes I think you pay at the county. There was some money left in the estimated resources that I actually upped the new equipment and fixtures. That's $50,000. That's going to go towards buying the salt truck. But to answer your question about the state, if you actually notice 52304 contracts and professional service in the interim budget, there was $30,000 there, and I lowered that back to $2,000. Our actual agreement that's been in effect since 19 whatever is for $2,000 worth of maintenance, and I haven't seen anything to tell me differently that that's going to go up. So that part of the budget has stayed to what we've been paying. I don't know if Tony would like to answer. That's about all I really know I can say.
Sure.
Anything to add about that?
Yeah, essentially, mayor, former mayor, myself, Mr. Dietrich, met with the state in the fall, and we discussed the state's positions and the city's position as pertains to the maintenance of our off ramps and on ramps and other aspects of Route 2. And we asked the state to provide us documentation that would support their position versus the contract that we feel is a contractual obligation that we've actually entered into with the state. And we're still looking at the state's position. So as I guess where we are on that right now is we still like to enforce the agreement that we entered into with the state in the 1960s.
Okay.
And just to further answer your question, the real reason that went up is because of the salt truck, and it actually went down in the amount by, I want to stick to the $2,000 agreement that we have.
Okay. All right, I just read that line item, and I was just moving on the assumption that it had to do with the increased rate. But tip of the cap to you, Mr. Law Director. I appreciate your protecting the citizens' money.
Well, we're not out of it yet, but thank you.
You're working hard.
We're working on it, yeah.
I appreciate that. For the tax department, I know at the end of last year we had discussed possible increases. Well, the amount of work is going, I don't know if it's an exponential number, but it's increasing significantly. Are you comfortable with the line item here for
What page are we talking about, so that everybody can refer?
I'm sorry, tax office is page 13?
Mhm.
Or tax, yeah.
In terms of the numbers, we're comfortable with what's in here, yes.
Okay. Have we, has your department been able to identify, will there be, you know, to what degree, how much more work will be, or is it gonna be lived through this year and?
The workload, I would say that's gonna be trial and error. In terms of what we anticipate costs will be, those have been reflected in the budget.
Okay.
I mean, maybe if I just reiterate, you made me think of a question. You asked him if he had looked at, all the department heads have looked at these budgets and decided they were sufficient and could work within them. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Just had a question about the parks. I appreciate seeing the increase in there. Can you
What
announce
page?
anything? It was just the parks line. I didn't even write down a page number. I'm sorry.
No page, no answer.
New administration, new
I
rules.
like
huh?
15? No, Park Trust.
Park Trust, Chuck, or Mr. Winarski, is that the one you're talking about?
Bear with me.
There's two different park accounts. There's the park account.
Yes.
12 is Park.
Yeah, we're looking at a pretty decent increase. I was just wondering if you had anything.
Which
you could
page, the
announce.
Park Trust?
Yes, page
The
15.
Park Trust, and actually it's going to be the capital outlay. What we're hoping to do with that building is update the pool building, make it more efficient, so that concessions and ticketing might be combined, and some work in the concession stand to make sure we're going to be updated as possible there.
Okay. Let's see here, then I just, I had jotted down water, but page 19 for the water department. Significant increase there.
You're going to see several increases within the water funds. There's a water improvement fund and the planning commission fund. Not that we're going to do it, but I want to investigate and have the monies available. I want to speed up our water meter radio read replacement program. So I've put enough money in this budget that if we are able to figure out a way to do it, I can buy all the meters necessary to finish that project. It's about $400,000 between about 4 different line items here that'll add up to.
Okay, so,
Some of it from impact fees, some of it from, builders, some of it from water revenue accounts.
Mr. Winarski, perhaps you could ask if there's, what kind of payback we're getting on those water meters. Because apparently we're wanting to put more in because I'm assuming there's some kind of payback.
We're in the middle of a study to talk about what our water losses are and our our unmetered losses,
Right.
and a lot of our older meters are slow. It'll speed up our reading process. It'll speed up the efficiency when people have leaks. We can detect them quicker on their bills. We'll be able to drive by in about a day and a half, where it's taken pretty much half the month to read all these meters by hand. So it'll definitely increase our efficiency and save on our losses of unbilled water.
okay, I have no doubt you're looking at it, and I appreciate that. I guess if I could summarize that question there, is just I appreciate you guys looking at it. My impression is it'd be very positive for the city
Good.
if we're able to move forward, and thank you very much for your work on that. And then just a final question. Last 6 months or so, I've been working with the building department trying to put together a sidewalk program for the repair of the degrading sandstone that was put in the old section of Amherst. We're nearing completion. Do you think we'd be okay to move forward? I should ask, will there be money in here for me to move forward? I'm going to be asking for about $40,000 a year.
There is no money in this budget for that, but I guess it would be at council's will if they decide a project like that's feasible. You would come back and reallocate a portion. We would find places. I'd work with you to find places to get it from. But this budget does not account for that at
Okay.
this point.
And all I can ask for at this point is be willing to listen to me as I plead my case in
Absolutely.
the future here. Okay, with that, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Miller?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess we'll stay with page 20, and that would be the capital outlay that you have in there for water. And I like the idea of speeding that up if it's economically feasible, if there's a return on investment. But I also have had some discussions, and I'm I guess there's some concerns about the possibility, or maybe looking into the possibility of the software, a better software system to actually do the input. So you have different people out there that have so many books that they take out and read the meters, and they have a certain amount of time. When they're coming back, the input could be sped up so much quicker with these new meters and the software back at the water department to just quickly upload, and then you'll have a more accurate
Well, that's
and more
what
efficient way.
the new water meter readers are like that. They carry a device around, they take it into the building, and that's all part of the efficiency of the system we're trying to update to.
So when they bring them back to the department, they just plug it in, it's gonna bring
Absolutely.
it on, so then that answers and also supports my,
It talks about the newer, because we're about halfway through this program, and when the data is down put into the system, it shows daily water uses by the hour. You can see when if a person's toilet starts leaking. I mean, you can see that spike. We can present nice little graphs to the residents. It's a pretty nice
and that's
system.
being utilized right now, so that
For about half
software,
of our
that's for
system.
half of them, so it is being utilized. So that is another, I think, positive for us speeding this up, both for the residents and for efficiency's sake. So I thank you for clarification on that, and I look forward to seeing that come to completion. I guess I'll start from the beginning. We can go back to page 1. You know what? Yeah, we will. For me, is there a reason that we're seeing such a huge jump in part-time wages at the police department?
When you mean dump, what
We have 177,000 for part-time
you
wages.
mean more? Not a dump. You mean a
No.
rise?
Jump, not dump.
Oh, I thought
jump.
you said dump.
Jump. Sorry, let me get my hand out of my way, my mouth. I apologize. Jump.
We're hoping to use. We just hired 2 part-time police officers. We're hoping to utilize them more. Their training, their first couple of months of training is like a full-time person, but they're paid through the part-time account. So their first few months, there's quite extensive training. So that's part of that, and we're just hoping to get more police officers on the ground as often as possible through our part-time services.
And that training is still ongoing because we hired them.
Just a month ago.
Month ago, right.
That was one of Mayor Taylor's last,
Right.
when he swore them in. So
So
they're out
they're-
on the roads full-time training
So
right
they're still
now.
in training. Excellent, thank you, that answered. And I usually, and this goes to technology committee, and I hope that that committee is given the opportunity to present to this administration, this council. There are so many more efficiencies that we're losing with telephone. I'm seeing the telephone costs going through the roof in all these departments. And we've talked about getting on either fiber line or getting on a system, and I'm hoping that we're gonna be able to start seeing these numbers for phone.
I've got, there's some line items in a couple different accounts. One is the cable technology account. You'll notice there's a
Well,
fair
that
amount
leads
of
to the
money
next question.
allocated there. So that is dedicated to the fiber project. We've already with a couple consultants. I've got some plans and ideas about how to get the fiber stretched, and one of my goals is to have us connected by the end of the year.
So is that gonna run through technology that,
Yeah, absolutely.
okay, great, that helps answer that as well. I did notice that line item back to page 1, you mentioned that part-time, not only is there part-time wage, but there's also training, so that is collectively, the training of the 22,000 and the 177, those are 2 line items that are a jump because of the 2 officers that are part-time.
The other training is completely different. That's, if we're finding out that we need some managers training for some of the newer assistant chiefs or lieutenants, or training on the new programs for saving lives with the Narcan. Those are dedicated to
That's
training for the existing officers,
Okay.
the smaller line item one.
Capital outlay, 120 grand,
2 police cruisers,
thank you,
and that's by contract. Once they get to 90,000 miles, we have to replace them.
perfect. Page 2, fire department.
Salaries and wages, I
Correct.
assume.
Correct.
Fire Chief Northeim is still on. He graciously took a time payout for his vacation, and he's still actually on the books until June-ish. So that is the extra money there until he. And like I said, instead of a lump sum,
Yep.
he's graciously taking it over time.
Excellent, that answered that, thank you so much. Moving on to page 4. Just the building inspector has repair and maintenance supplies. we have a 400% increase, if not more.
He's got a truck that's not nearing, it's very well maintained, but it's starting to get, rusty. Needs a few repairs on small issues to extend the life of that truck for a couple more years. We're hoping to put some money into that. And if you also notice, I've added the capital outlay line item at the bottom of that. That's just to get started, because within the next 3 or 4 years, I hope to have money in that one to actually purchase him a new vehicle down there. He did not have a capital outlay account till this year.
So we're looking to extend the life of the truck.
That's
Not
it.
replace it.
I want to get 2 or 3 more years out of the truck that he has,
Perfect.
and look good while he's doing it.
Very good, thank you. Page 5. And then we have just, for me, I'm looking for something that shoots out and that is not in the last couple budgets. And then the health insurance is our last mayor was not on health insurance.
Yeah,
and
that dang
this one-
new
okay,
mayor needs health insurance.
fine, that'll work. Once again, I keep seeing all these departments and telephone. New budget, we haven't seen any travel in the mayor's budget in the last 6 to 8 that I've seen. Are there,
I'll probably keep track of my miles like the contract says
Mhm.
I'm able, because I plan on doing a lot of traveling to go to different meetings, networking with other mayors and other organizations. So that's only when after I get here to the office and I leave from the office to go somewhere and come back to here.
all right, so I just didn't see that in the last couple, and I was wondering if there was a change there. Anything I would expect you're gonna actually have a computer now in that office.
There's one there now.
Is that the $4,000 there, you're gonna get upgraded there?
I didn't spend that much on my little tablet that I bought. I'm not nowhere near that, but I actually used the interim budget to purchase that.
Excellent. So I just saw that capital outlay, I was wondering if there's, from 500.
No real plans. We want to do some upgrades
Okay.
at City Hall and in the mayor's office, so I really don't have plans for that yet, but I won't use it if I don't need it.
And then page 6, contracts under safety service director.
Negotiations this year, we have to hire an outside labor lawyer to help us with negotiations. Again, if I'm able, if the safety service director and I is able to negotiate this without legal help, we'll do that, but I need that there just in case.
Okay, perfect. I'll tell you what, if you were in my class, you'd be getting an A right now, just so you know. Nice job. Page 8, and this would be for our treasurer's office, Mr. Ramsey maybe can answer. Is that a normal budget for bank card charges?
It's actually a typo. Card should not really be in there, it's bank charges. It's been listed this way for a number of years. I think Mr. Pless wrote it in there that way. It encompasses not only the bank card charges, but in addition, the other charges. The reason why it looks, why it's 50% more is because we've gotten, our bank that we were at has been taken over by a new outfit, and we don't exactly know what we're gonna have to pay them, and so we've just kind of planned for the worst. So,
Is this,
and
we have a few bank takeovers. I was just curious who we're making.
Northwest, from Lorraine National Bank.
In Northwest.
Yeah. We don't really know what we're going to have to pay.
So you're
them
gonna,
yet.
have you thought about looking into something less than 12 grand in banking charges?
Well, there's
Or-
also other charges, but we don't really know what they are yet.
Okay,
So,
no, that answers it. Thank you, Mr. Ramsey.
Mhm.
Perfect. Still page 8. Law Director's Office, we have a new part-time employee, right, adjustment?
Yeah, we have a part-time employee who basically is our legal assistant down in the Oberlin Municipal Court. She's there, she assists the prosecutor issuing subpoenas, getting our police officers there. She also is employed part-time by other municipalities. She's been without a raise for 7 years.
Right.
So we haven't really come to an agreement yet as to what she expects or what we feel is appropriate, but we wanted to add some money there.
Excellent.
So,
Absolutely. And the contracts is the normal increase because of,
right, I believe, Mr. Miller, I believe that's pertains to our share of costs as it pertains to running the Oberlin Municipal Court.
yep, perfect. And I I can guarantee that hopefully it's more than a handful, but those out there would appreciate the answers you guys are giving. Page 9, City Hall. We have a $20,000 and a $4,000, which is a 200 and a
New
almost
equipment, fixture,
300.
repairs and maintenance. There's some tuck pointing outside on the building. I mean, the bell tower, if we don't give it some tender loving care, it's gonna fall apart at some point. Like to do some painting in the hallway, spruce up, you know, coming into City Hall. Give it its due. It's a pretty impressive building. You know, I'd like to just shine it up a little bit.
All right, so
And then the fixtures, you know, whether it's new light fixtures, you know, I just wanted the money there. I'm not sure if I don't, again, it's one of those, if I don't need it, I won't use it.
fantastic, you just stood out with that large of an increase. I always question why 300% or whatever. Page 10. That transfers out of 300,000. Where is that linking up to? Because I missed that and I was trying to.
That's that new page I asked to insert. What that is, we needed at the last moment. There's two grants, the FEMA grant for the SCBA's and the police camera for 4 or 5, you know, I'm sorry, it's either 4 or 5 cameras for the police cruisers. We got a grant for that, and we need a place for the money to come in. We've got to spend the money first, and it's a reimbursement. So we have to have somewhere to take money from the general fund or wherever, you know, the auditors decide to take it, and then it'll go away. So that's the money that's a wash at the end of the year.
Yep, thank you. Page 11. We've had a very blessed winter, so knock on wood. Let's keep the salt and the snow off the roads, but are we expecting that large of an increase for snow removal after winters?
What's that?
And that would be on page 11, that would be line item 201-6001-52411, snow removal, $190,000, up from the $129,000 we spent last year, and a pretty heavy, thick snow.
That was probably, I'll be honest, that's a number that got input in the interim budget, and I just didn't catch that, but if
Okay.
that's another one, if we don't use it, you know, it'll come right back in there.
Okay, that was my concern, I'm thinking, wow,
But if you notice, you know, we haven't used it, there's snow removal on the state highway, too, you know, that's one that we typically don't use, so we're well protected with snow removal, but that's the one, again, if we don't use it, it just rolls over into the carryover.
which would be coming out of the street fund?
Which one?
Is that where that revenue comes from, Mr. Brown?
The state
For the
highway
street.
comes from, I believe, like license plates or
Okay.
something like, of that nature.
And then our revenue source for the street
The
maintenance?
street is that
That's-
15% from the,
That's 15%,
from the-
so that would stay in
and last
that-
year, if you remember, we did a 90-10, so I went back to 85% for general fund, 15% for the streets, so that we could definitely give the streets some care that they need.
And there's possibility that maybe even that could be pulled there as well, or if we choose another street, or if we see. or
We've got a pretty aggressive street program coming up.
I look forward to
Even
it.
if you find more money, I don't know if we could pave more streets without inconveniencing the citizens.
Well, I appreciate that attempt to, the streets are in dire need. Park and poll part-time wages. I had somebody ask me why the poll closed early.
This is page 12.
This is page 12, my apologies, I put the
Well, if you
page.
notice, there's
Yes.
more money in part-time wages, and you're answering your own question. I put some more money in there if we have the employees. The typical problem has been, most of our employees are high school students.
Mhm.
So until school lets out, we have nobody to work, and once school starts back, we have nobody to work. But I did put some money in part-time wages, just in case we find people to work.
Okay, so so that you could extend. so
We
that-
could, if we find the right employees.
Oh, to extend.
You notice that's about $9,000 extra dollars I put in that budget.
And and maybe even these facility upgrades will allow you to be more efficient with those employees
Exactly.
anyway. So handling both tickets and concessions and whatever, so should get even better bang for our buck with that facility upgrade. Very good. Wow, we're moving right along. Thank you, Madam Chair, for this timely Q&A here on page 14. Office on Aging wages for part-time went up, $9,000.
I'll just talk about salaries and wages first, since we're on that page. Nina retired, last year, and that's part, she graciously took part of her her payout last year and part this year. The money's gonna be in part-time wages, but their ordinance set by council only allows them to work up to 25 hours. Again, I put a little bit of money in there so that if council at some point in time finds a way around the union contracts and able to give them more hours, and the services that I remember council asking for last year, the ball's in your hand
Yeah,
at this point.
And that's fantastic. I completely agree that we should be servicing our elderly more effectively, but, so that's good to hear. I do remember the 25 hours. That's why if we have by contract, or excuse me, by ordinance that we only give up to 25 hours, why is that amount going up? You answered the question. I appreciate that. Planning Commission, same page. Planning Commission spent $16,000 last year. They need $150 this year.
You asked for new water meters, that's where it's coming from.
So that's the other portion of
That's
the
part of the
400.
portion of those
Perfect.
water meters are coming from about 4 different accounts. And the planning commission mostly is impact fees from builders. I know we have some
Mhm.
development coming. We had some carryover from last year that we didn't use or allocate. So that was one place I'm comfortable with, especially when we're gonna be saving
Absolutely.
with new water meters.
Excellent. That it does answer why the huge jump. Page 15. It does show here at Park Trust, you explained the updating of the pool building concessions. That helped answer my question about the increase in part-time wages, so we can continue to move past that. 16, we're on cable television. You had mentioned that there's some fiber in the works. I'd love to hear that. I'd love to hear that we're utilizing the cable television fund for actual communication that will assist the residents. So is that going from 91,000 last year to 492? Is that an aggressive $400,000 attempt at?
I'm getting estimates from here to here.
Okay.
And it all depends on the bid process, and that, I think that's a little high on the range, but again, if we want fiber by the end of the year, that's one of those things where those bills have to come either through the safety service director or myself, so, that's a promise. If I don't need to spend that money, we won't be spending it, other than on fiber and a couple other small projects.
I really wish we had those companies come in to lay fiber. They laid this. We had some vision there to lay some fiber piece by piece and get it ready, so it wouldn't be a $400,000 ding. But
It might not be,
appreciate that.
but I want to be prepared in case it is.
Transfer out 7,800 on the same page, same line, 2 lines down.
That's our share of the police TV camera for their cruiser, the camera project. So you see down below, that's the portion from the grant, the advance outs. That's when it coming back out of the police account. That's the portion that the city has to pay to match that grant. And again, we might not spend that all, depending on what the final prices come into. That's the maximum match that we'll have to do.
And this is not coming out of the police budget, and it's coming out of cable television for...
It's technology, it's communications. I think it's a fair use, and I think the auditors allowed that in the past.
Okay. Same page 16, law enforcement, other police accounts, jumps from 1,900 spent in 2015 to 40,000 is
Which one is that?
other police accounts on page 16 still, other police accounts, law enforcement.
We usually allocate that entire amount. We never know if we get another one of those grant things, if we get some kind of grant for bulletproof vests or drug testing, or we typically allocate all that we have. That money comes in from unique places, confiscations. So typically the police department asks for the whole thing. As you see, we're very frugal with that. If we don't see a good reason to spend it, we don't spend it, but we want it available in case a really good opportunity arises.
So this is not coming out of...
That's not general fund money.
General fund money, thank you. That's perfect explanation, I appreciate it. Cruiser camera project on the next page 17, is that part also of the cruiser? Because we have our share of the camera, then we have a 31.5 on
That's the entire amount. Once you get
Okay.
the entire amounts of money, that's where it goes to,
And
and then
then
it's
it'll
gotta
be reimbursed.
that's where it's transferring out into
Perfect.
that account so we can pay for it.
Okay, so this is part of that grant, correct?
It's our portion and the grant portion.
Okay. Great. On the bottom of 17, under capital outlay for sewer improvement replacement, is that another spot for our meters, 25,887? What's this capital outlay for sewer improvement replacement?
That's one of the accounts that builders and stuff contributes to this. That was money that was there. I decided to allocate it, no real need for it, but if a small sewer project arises, we'll use that. I thought it was silly to leave it sitting there and not use it. And actually, if you noticed last year, we allocated the whole $40,887. I split it up, a portion into engineering, a portion into capital outlay. It used to be all engineering in case we needed extra engineering. So I just split that money up, and it's money that's been there.
Been budgeted.
It's
Or
been
is it money
budgeted.
that's been in that
That's the end
account?
of it. I mean, that's one of these accounts that once it's depleted, it's gone. For some reason, that money, a builder needed to pay a certain fee into this. We really don't know. It goes back quite a ways. I mean, Mr. Otter might know where that come from, but that's one of my.
So that's our balance. We have a balance of 48,8719. Excellent.
We do.
Perfect. Page 18. Water improvement, 60,000, which is 10 times or close to the amount of the actual for,
Take a good guess.
I'm gonna guess we got water meters coming. Correct?
Absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That question's answered. Round 30 of the state issue funds, 500,000. Just bring us up to speed on that. I see round 29. Round
That's
30.
one of the numbers the auditor puts in there. I believe that's monies when we go out for the state issue for the roads. It's an in and out. I mean, Mr. Kuka might be able to answer. That's one of the numbers that Gwen plugged
Page
in.
18. The 500,000 for state issue funds, round 30.
Yeah, those are, we have to put the money in.
Yep.
And then as the project, as portions are complete and we're checked off by the engineering, then we submit it to the state and the state sends us our money back.
Excellent. So that's a holding, basically. Great. Explains it. And then the same thing with the CBG, or CBCG, those are, I already know that one, I got that. That's the same, it's a holding, that's what I needed to see there. The, page 19. And auditorium restoration, we have budgeted in 2015, 95,000. Was there something that we had pipe dreams on or thoughts on, or what's
At the very
95 sitting in there?
the very
and then 70?
beginning of my dealings with government, I was on a committee to restore the auditorium upstairs, and we received some grants. Every year since, we've allocated some money, and if you see, typically, we don't use very much of it. It fixed the roof, it removed the asbestos, it did a lot of different things. I knew my plate was going to be pretty full. I would like to revisit that project sometime, so I only put $10,000 in that account to keep me out of upstairs for a year.
Well, I love the thought that you would like to revisit that. I think that is a resource up there that we could somehow pull together and make it return to what it was. Beautiful. Moving on to page 20. Capital outlay for water. And you said that was meters, we're good to go there. Down on page, same page 20, contract and professional services. Last year we budgeted 150,000, spent 44.
We've got a real good handle
sewer.
on our telemetry. You know, when all our pump stations are hooked up to phones and we have computer systems at the sewer department, when we got the new system, we really didn't know back then what our costs were going to be for the support. I think, as you can see, $44,000 last year, and that seemed to be pretty steady. So I lowered that amount to, to try to get some money in other places, especially in capital outlay. I raised that about some of the portion that I took from there. I just shuffled it within that department.
To the capital outlay. And that wasn't as big. Looking good. 23 for electric. We had a huge project that's almost done. How are we doing with
They,
that budget?
they should be making their final walkthroughs and should be real near completion. All that money was allocated and encumbered in previous years.
This one? Okay.
So that is no longer part of that budget, and that's why capital outlays come down. Within that capital outlay, you know, we do want to purchase a digger truck. It's something from the 80s, and we spend quite a bit of money each year now to certify it, and we hope to, and I'm visiting lease to buy, I'm visiting capital outlay purchase, so you guys will probably see that item in a couple weeks included.
Excellent. Page 24. Upgrades to the utilities department for capital outlay from 3 to 13.
I want to put a sign in front of that building. Nobody knows what that building is. You know, they don't know the auditor's there, they don't know the treasurer's there, they don't know the director's there. So I don't think a sign will cost that much, but, you know, I want it available in case we need it.
I was gonna say electronic message sign, but I didn't think that would be very funny, so I'll move on. Staying page 24. Capital outlay, Sand Spring Building, are we having issues with that building again, or are we just enough to make sure if there's something comes up, we have it in there? Capital outlay for same page 24, Sand Spring Building.
Wasn't that what I just answered? Wasn't that what did I
I would
answer?
have thought you were answering the utilities department. But the Sand Spring, you want to sign there as well?
It's the same,
It's the same.
it's the same building.
Utilities are in the basement.
Okay. Not the department, okay, so when you started talking like there, I thought maybe you were using that.
Somebody put
over
that,
and-
that's another one, maybe the sign gets in the interim budget, you know, and I you know, that you passed that already. I might add the money to the sign in the Sand Spring building instead of utilities. So
Okay,
that, again, that will not be, if we do not, you see, we didn't spend any money there last year. So if we don't need it, we won't spend it.
yeah,
But some of our buildings could use a little bit of help on the
Maybe some
inside,
sidewalk,
so if projects come up, the money's there.
Well, I give you an A+. You took care of all my answers, very clear, easy to understand. Appreciate all your help. I'm serious, I really appreciate you and the auditor and Mr. Ramsey down there. Just love all the way to the end now. Don't worry. Thank you guys for answering my questions. Madam Chair, I'm complete, and I appreciate the time.
Thank you. Mr. Costello, do you have a suggestion as to how we should handle this in terms of?
This needs to be to the county by the end of March. You know, I brought it in front of you in time if you want to go 3 readings. I mean, really at council's pleasure. You might ask the auditor how he would like it, but I think I've presented it enough that you could go 3 readings
Okay.
if you wanted to. The end of March is when this needs to be to the county.
All right, Mr. Auditor, I believe your deputy auditor is going to be submitting this formally, correct? Is that it actually gets submitted by you to the county, right?
Correct.
What, what is your pleasure?
Usually I take it in person and drop it off.
I know, but what is your pleasure in terms of suspension of rules? Do you want to go 3 readings?
If you went 3 readings and
It's
then
mayor's-
emergency,
Mayor's privilege. Whatever he would like to do.
just so it's
either way.
passed in law,
I just, I
The
mean,
week
if we
before
pass,
the-
if we pass
So
it
you're
in 3
asking-
readings, we
Okay.
have it to the county by the 15th of March.
Okay, so we either have to suspend rules on the first reading or pass it on 3 readings and pass it on the emergency.
yeah, you would still have to pass it on emergency on the 3 readings, because you
Uh-huh.
couldn't wait the 30 days after that.
Right.
But it does give opportunity for people to review it for the next 3, you know, 2 more meetings.
Okay. Mr. Winarski?
Motion to take this to the floor council.
Okay, Mr. Van Truen?
Second, and because both the auditor and the mayor suggested there's no reason for it to go through 3 readings, I think maybe we should exercise some constraint here and let it go through those 3 readings as it's meant to.
Okay, and certainly if we need to amend it in terms of the suspension of rules or passing on the emergency, especially if you talk to the deputy auditor and give us some feedback between now and next week, we can add something. There's a motion and a second to send this to the first reading, send this to the floor of council for the first reading. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion is carried 7-0. That is all I have. Mr. Winarski?
Did you have any other agenda items?
I don't think so.
Okay, in that case, I'll motion to adjourn.
Mr. Goodell?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion is carried 7-0. We are adjourned at 7:41 p.m. Thank you, gentlemen.
Good evening, and I'd like to open the Police and Fire Committee meeting today is February 1st, 2016. We're beginning at 7:43 p.m. Using the attendance taken during the most recent Finance Committee meeting, everyone's present and accounted for. And with that, I present to you item number 16-05. This is an authorization to bid and award self-contained breathing apparatus and related equipment not to exceed $250,000. With that, it's brought to us by the administration, and I would like to ask Mr. Jeffries, if you would, please share with us your thoughts on this.
Happy to do that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate that. As you've reviewed in your packet of information, in September of 2015, the Amherst Fire Department was awarded a grant from FEMA to replace all 34 self-contained breathing apparatuses, or the acronym is SCBA, units that are currently in use in all of our fire trucks. I would like to present the following information on the current SCBA units and also the new proposed units. Current units, those were all put into service between 1986 and 1990. In the years since, they've gone through at least 3 general changes as recommended by the NFPA. In addition to annual testing that is required to keep the units functioning properly, as they should, the department has expended $3,000 to $5,000 yearly over the last approximate 5 years to keep those units up and running. And then also, these current units at the end of this year will be NFPA non-compliant. A little information about the new units that we're talking about. The new units will be self-contained, and thus will be more durable and should help minimize our repair costs. The new standards will provide these units with an alarm when 33% of the usable oxygen is registered. The current units provide the firefighter signal at 25%. So allowing that to happen, this will allow our firefighters to remove themselves from the situation and get themselves, in a much quicker fashion. Would allow them to continue their job with a new tank. The grant includes funding for the air pack apparatus, an air bottle, also a backup replacement bottle for every one of those units, face mask with what they call maximum voice intelligence for communications. A really neat feature to these new units is what's called a pack tracker that allows the support folks that are not involved in the fire to keep track of where our firefighters are at on the scene. So it's a very good upside to these units. And then these units would have a life cycle of approximately 20 to 25 years, the new units. So we're requesting your authorization to solicit bids and award for the above units not to exceed $250,000. And then also realizing that we've got a FEMA grant for $201,000. So our total cost will not exceed would not exceed $49,000. So I'd like, Chief Nold isn't here, but I'd like to thank him for his contribution to this agenda item. And then also like to thank Captain Doug Hawkins, who was nice enough on the 26th of January to give me a nice guided tour through the current units. So, and also talk to me about these new units. So that was very helpful. So that's all, Mr. Chairman. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Very nice report.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jeffries. Anyone from the administration care to elaborate before I go to questions?
Our old units go out of compliance, did you see?
End of the year. Yeah,
So
they'll be
we've got time,
non-compliant.
again, this wouldn't have to be emergency, but getting these new units on our officers might be important.
Yeah.
So is it kind of up to you guys?
So the sooner we
How
pass
fast you
this, the
wanna do
sooner
it?
it's in your hands?
Absolutely.
I don't see a downside to that. But anyhow, that's for, we're going to start with Mr. Miller, then go Mr. Ventru, and then Mr. Goodell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What can you say when you have a fire department that goes out and grabs huge grants to help keep the costs down for our city? So kudos to our previous chief, our new chief, and all the firefighters that are out there. My second part of the question was answered with, is there any way we can get this equipment to them any quicker? And if there is, I'm in full support of it. So with that, I yield back to the floor, and I thank the fire department, Mr. Jeffries, and everybody for presenting this to us. That's it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Ventruin.
I'd like to mark the event. I think there are very rarely times when we're able to pass something on the emergency that could actually save somebody's life because we're passing it on emergency. We often use that, but I want to make sure that we realize that here tonight. So, support passing it on. It really, really is an emergency. Actually doing it, and it's the definition of an emergency.
Okay.
And yes, I move to send this on to the floor.
Okay.
The emergency.
Okay, we have a motion to send this to the floor of council with the emergency, and I'll get to you in a moment, Mr. Goodell. At this time, I'd like to request a second. Mr. Goodell?
I will second.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Only because you had your hand up so darn long. Okay, any additional comment before we go to the vote? Oh, I'm sorry, is there additional comments? No, they have the motion and the second.
I was just going to motion to the floor, but I will second it. So.
Okay. Any additional comment? Okay, we have a motion and a second to send this to the floor of council with the emergency. Just take a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone against? It passes unanimously. Mr. Miller.
Move to adjourn.
Mr. Janik.
Second?
Motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone against? We're adjourned at 7:50.
With all those in attendance, we have A16-06 in front of us, the authorization to enter into an agreement with Everstream Solutions LLC for pole attachments. Mr. Mayor, would you like to provide a summary of?
Thank you, Chairman. Give you just a little tiny bit of background on this. Everstream Solutions used to be a group called Community One. They were a non-for-profit organization that strung a lot of fiber optics through a lot of different communities. Well, they are now a for-profit company that's been either bought out or however all that works, and they are called Everstream Solutions. Community One had a pole attachment agreement with the city of Amherst, dated quite when they first got started. Much like the agreement you did with FiberTech, except it was only a $4 a pole agreement. Not a lot of technology has changed since then, so this new agreement, the same exact one you approved a few months ago for Fiber Tech, if you remember that pole attachment agreement. So because Community One signed a contract that said no reassignments, if they change companies, they cannot just ask us to sign a new agreement with that company. This gave us an opportunity to renegotiate a new contract with them. And because the contract with Fiber Tech was approved once with council, the fee schedule for the pole attachments is really good. And all the newer technology with nodes and stuff that some of the people on council know a whole lot about. It's a whole lot better agreement, so I'm just asking that you allow us to enter into the same agreement you allowed us to with FiberTech for Everstream Solutions. If you have any more questions, I'll do my best.
Mr. Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not this may be a law director question, but I know we're talking fiber and there's hopes for fiber. Was there any discussions of, here's a company that comes in and will put fiber up on poles for their own, and that's what they do? I was hope you may have a chance to.
These are one of the companies I'm in talks with.
So we're going to sign a contract before they.
There's one more part of this that might be of somewhat importance. The $4 to $9 pole attachment is probably not the most important thing here. They want to build a small fiber run from our Amherst Hospital to Life Care, so that the helicopters that come in will have better communication between Life Care. The ambulances that come in, there'll be a lot quicker and better communication with patients coming into the hospital. That's the real importance of getting this, so they can stretch that string of fiber. It doesn't, signing this contract, and if you read portions of it, doesn't prevent us to further negotiate into them helping us string fiber. But this just gives us the ability to let them continue to do business within the city and use our poles.
So their ultimate goal is to do business in the city. I would think that if they know that we want to run fiber.
And that's part of these talks.
Okay.
And this contract
This
is
has to
not
come
limited.
first. This has to come
This has
first.
to come. This is definitely the chicken before the egg thing here.
Okay. Now, I didn't know if that was a law director question. Do we have to?
Well, we can't hold up this agreement. I mean, just like all the other fiber type agreements, like with FiberTech, we have to be diligent. We can't purposely hold things up.
Okay.
So.
I just want to know what our.
But it doesn't preclude the mayor's office from negotiating it. I mean, if you, Mr. Mayor, you can certainly.
There's a section in there that talks about, it doesn't hold either party back from talking about franchise agreements for any other agreements.
But I think what Mr. Miller is saying is, can you discuss concurrently with them?
That's my question. That is exactly my question.
And I don't know if we done that, but I don't know if they're interested in doing that right now. That's the question.
There's other companies if we have to.
There's more than just one company I want to talk to, and there's going to be bidding. This won't be a,
Sure.
just because they want to hang a little bit more line. I don't think they should have the right to be the sole proprietor for the city of Amherst.
No, but also the rate. Okay, I'll leave that. That's what we got you here for. So we appreciate that, and I hope that we can come up with something. That's all I have on this issue.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mrs. Vasil?
Mr. Law Director, what should we do in terms of the time frame on this? Can this go for 3 readings as far as the contract is concerned? Do we need to?
I have no preference. I mean, I think you could go 3 readings unless the mayor's.
Again, it's your preference. There is a chance that this better technology for them getting that strung up quicker could be a benefit to our citizens.
Just because of the connection between the hospital.
And I don't know how fast, they don't have a representative here, but they did stress some sense of urgency. But
Not enough to send someone here, but.
yeah, I'm not going to.
Well, they're probably not going to have to use our ambulance system anyways. Well,
So you could send it on, and if the emergency arises, we can talk about it at a later reading.
So we could add the emergency on the first reading tomorrow.
Yeah, in fact, you could. That's when you would do it anyway. I
Yeah,
mean.
okay, well, then I move that we take this to the floor council.
Mr. Goodell? Was there another question, Mr. Menard?
Just some comment, but we're in the midst of
We need a second.
motion, so
We need a second.
if you like, I'll second.
Mr. Goodell seconded.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
So all in favor of taking A 16-06?
No, you want just a bit of
Oh,
comment.
do you have a comment? Okay.
If I could take a moment here, and something I've learned, my role in telecommunication has expanded since September. Working contracts with municipalities, no one out there will entertain the notion of making a condition providing service. An agreement is an agreement. They're both separate. You want this agreement to deal with the issue that they have at hand. You want a separate agreement to deal with any fiber relationship. No one's going to agree to that anymore. It may have happened at one time. Those days have long since passed. In addition to that, the timeliness, it's nicknamed the shot clock rule. That as soon as it's introduced into council that we've got so much time, and from what I understand, we're well within that shot clock to move this forward without an emergency or anything. Those are just the two things I've learned since September. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Winarski. Any other comments? All right, seeing none, we'll go to a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we are unanimous. Mr. Miller,
Move to adjourn.
we have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Mr. Winarski.
I'll second.
Meeting is officially adjourned at 7. Oh, motion, a vote to adjourn. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. We're adjourned at 7:59.
She was gonna vote no.
The ayes have it.
You know, I haven't eaten all day, so actually it's really good, so.
Thank you.
Stick around.